Growing up with items seems to solidify them in your brain forever. Each generation has one thing or another that they felt was going to be around forever, and each generation has had that sad moment where those things disappear. Sometimes it's as innocuous as a bubblegum company, other times it's a staple, an icon of an industry that it's a part of. Either way, they are all gone. Their stories, their history will be told on another episode of The Remedial Scholar.
That's ancient history.
I feel I was denied critical, need to know information.
Belongs in a museum, bro.
Stop skipping your remedial class.
Welcome back, one and all. This is Remedial Scholar, and I am your host, Levi. It has been a little bit, but my voice is mostly back, and I'm glad for that. Glad I don't have to do my Macho Man Randy Savage impression of like reading this whole thing, because that would not be great. There's still a little gap in my voice, a little on the higher end, but for the most part, it's back, and so that's good. Today's topic is kind of random, all things considered, but it was dreamt up in the comment section of my Facebook page and felt like it would be kind of fun to talk about. The original comments were about a soft drink, which we will end up talking about eventually, but like in the opener, they were a staple of my childhood. So, just kind of tying it into a little more personal part of, a little personal stories, kind of. Granted, my youth is not exactly history. I'm not that old, but the companies that made memories for me had a long history before I existed, so that's kind of the vibe of this episode. I think each of these closed businesses hold a certain lesson in their demise and also undoubtedly hold precious memories for some out there. With that being said, let's get into it. I think one of the biggest and oldest companies to shut their doors is one everyone is familiar with. If you aren't, maybe bring out some old photo albums. That's right. Let's look at the Kodak moment of origin. This company started a few years ago in 1888, so just one or two. George Eastman and Henry Strong came together with an idea: take the burgeoning camera craze and make it accessible to the common everyday consumer. In 1888, George Eastman patented the Kodak camera, revolutionizing photography with its box design and simplified operation. The camera featured a fixed focus lens, no viewfinder, or rotating key to advance the film. Kodak's marketing strategy, "You press the button, we do the rest," made photography more accessible by offering preloaded cameras with film rolls for processing. The name itself, Eastman stated, was that it fit the trademark requirements that they were requesting, as well as his fascination with the consonant K. He liked the way it sounded and just felt right, so he's like, this is what we're going to make this company. So there's something really simple and fun about that. In the 1890s, Kodak expanded rapidly through innovation and acquisitions, focusing on film market control. The company's success led to global expansion and the release of the Brownie Company in 1900, or Brownie Camera, sorry, not company. Catering to amateur photographers, Kodak's involvement in the motion picture industry further boosted its prominence, and during World War I, Kodak even played a role in aerial reconnaissance training, providing film for that sort of thing, which is kind of cool. Henry Strong's death in 1919 saw Eastman becoming president. Kodak's research laboratories were established in 1912, leading to breakthroughs like Kodachrome film in 1935. Eastman implemented progressive worker benefit programs, contributing to the concept of welfare capitalism. However, the company's employment practices excluded certain groups, as most did in this part of history, unfortunately. The Great Depression did impact Kodak. It impacted pretty much every industry, leading to layoffs and Eastman's eventual suicide in 1932. The Rochester Plan, a private unemployment insurance initiative, was initiated by Marion Folsom. Despite challenges, research projects in the 1930s despite these challenges, research projects in the 1930s resulted in new products and partnerships, including, as I mentioned before, Kodachrome and collaboration with Edwin Land. During World War II, Kodak shifted production to support the war effort. European subsidiaries operated even in occupied territories. Kodak scientists joined the Manhattan Project even, which, was enriching uranium-235. Post-war, Kodak faced challenges with radiation exposure and X-ray film and collaborated with the United States Atomic Energy Commission for nuclear tests. So that's kind of wild, thinking about these guys who were working on camera parts and now buddied up with these tests to find out why some of their X-ray films are being fogged up. They made a secret deal with the government to hide their findings. They essentially blackmailed them, going, hey man, our X-ray film, it's the strangest thing, it's all foggy, which can only mean there's probably some nuclear weapons testing a little too close to civilization, and brokered a secret deal. In the aftermath of World War II, Kodak experienced unprecedented growth, diversifying its film applications across different industries. Notably, in 1948, Tennessee Eastman played a pivotal role by introducing a groundbreaking non-flammable acetate film, which swiftly supplanted nitrate film in the movie industry. If you've seen Inglourious Bastards, nitrate film is what Shoshana, what she used to burn down that movie theater towards the end. Spoiler alert for that movie that's 15 years old now. Kodak's visionary expansion continued in 1958 when it ventured into marketing superglue, a move that demonstrated the company's versatility. Furthermore, Kodak contributed to the field of space exploration by providing cameras for NASA's missions, solidifying its reputation as a technological pioneer. And also, why wouldn't you? If you're already an established, well-to-do company, why wouldn't you go, you know what, I guess we'll just give you some cameras? Because even if NASA does not go, if whatever they were trying to do wasn't successful, you still have your name attached to, we got cameras out there. We let everybody see what was happening, which is pretty badass, if you ask me. The 1960s witnessed another milestone for Kodak with the introduction of instamatic cameras, capturing public's imagination and propelling the company's sales to surpass $2 billion in 1966. Concurrently, Kodak actively engaged in clandestine government projects during the Cold War, exemplified by its involvement in designing cameras for the U-2 reconnaissance aircraft, not the band, and producing equipment for surveillance satellites. However, as the 1970s unfolded, Kodak's business model remained somewhat stagnant, primarily focusing on film-related products. This inertia resulted in Kodak lagging behind its competitors in emerging markets like instant cameras and photocopiers. The entry of Fuji into the United States market during the 1980s intensified competition, challenging Kodak's market dominance. At the same time, Kodak developed the first digital camera in 1975, which is wild. Kodak execs did not embrace this new technology, and the irony is that, of course, that they really should have. You have a digital camera in the middle of the 70s, way before everybody else, and you're not even focused on it. It's like an afterthought. It's almost like the music industry and Napster type of vibe here, where Napster was seen as this villainous entity which robbed these musicians of their hard-earned money, but that's what all streaming services today do. So that's exciting. You're getting paid in exposure. Look at all these millions of downloads, bro. Anyway, despite these challenges, Kodak experienced a resurgence in the 1990s with increased revenues and profits. The rivalry with Fuji escalated into a price war, impacting Kodak's market share. Both companies grappled with the growing threat posed by digital photography. While both recognized the impending digital revolution, adapting to this transformative shift proved to be a formidable challenge. I think this rivalry is best summarized by my brain as the green or yellow disposable cameras between Kodak and Fuji. Kodak started the disposable camera craze with the Kodak Fling, which was a single-shot camera, but the methodology was the same as its successors. These disposable cameras are what I think of, when I think of Kodak, I think of these disposable cameras because I didn't grow up with any other type of Kodak film camera at all. Kodak's reluctance to fully embrace digital technology became evident in the early 2000s. In an effort to boost profits, CEO Antonio Perez shifted focus towards digital technologies and inkjet printers. However, financial struggles prompted Kodak to explore alternative revenue streams, leading to a significant reliance on patent litigation, which is... If that's where you're focused on trying to earn your money, your business is not doing well. In turn, the company's challenges culminated in its filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2012. During the bankruptcy proceedings, Kodak underwent a significant transformation, sold patents, ceased production of various products, and emerged in 2013 as a technology company with a renewed focus on imaging for business purposes. This marked the end of an era for our iconic film company, and the decline of Kodak had profound economic consequences for the company and the place where it was founded as well. Once a thriving hub for its operations, I believe it's Rochester, New York. The shift from film-based photography to digital imaging represented a monumental shift in the industry landscape, reflecting the challenges and opportunities faced by a once dominant player in the field. I think Kodak is lucky that there's a soft spot for their original work in the photography world, as well as like the general public's nostalgia glasses. They have been sold to other companies but still operate in the traditional print, digital print, advanced materials and chemicals, branding, that kind of thing, which, other big things with Kodak is the illustrious Kodachrome color film is also the namesake of a really good movie starring Jason Sudeikis and Ed Harris, so you should watch that. But anyway, Kodak's not completely gone, but definitely not what they were, and it is wild to me because, like, that swing of being just the name for everything, like, it's crazy how often that happens with companies. They're like, this is the household name. They are the one and only thing that people do with this service or whatever, and then they fumble it, and it's wild to see. The next example is very similar in that aspect, and also similar in how, they're not completely gone, I guess, but whatever. There's also a theme in this episode. In 1921, two brothers, Theodore and Milton Deutschman, in Boston, Massachusetts, came together to sell parts and equipment to amateur radio enthusiasts. These two men created a store to sell these parts and decided to name it after the shack that housed their radio parts, Radio Shack, right? This was also two-part because it was also the name that they felt they could play on, like, the radio rooms aboard ships, which is, kind of little fun fact for you. By 1939, Radio Shack entered the high-fidelity music market and gained prominence during the 1950s by introducing private label products under the Realist brand. However, during its phase in Boston, customers disdainfully dubbed it Nagasaki hardware due to their perceived low-quality parts sourced from Japan. Despite aspirations for expansion in the late 1950s, the company encountered financial challenges in the early 1960s. This is actually pretty reminiscent of the anti-Japan hate we found in the Japanese internment camp episode. Like, how the company in Die Hard was turned into a Japanese company due to the struggles against Japanese competition in corporate America at the time. So that's kind of interesting. Recognizing Radio Shack's potential, Tandy Corporation, a leather goods company, acquired it for $300,000 in 1962 under the leadership of Charles D. Tandy. That's just a really fun name to say. Old Charlie D. Tandy. Radio Shack underwent a strategic shift targeting hobbyists, which I think was a good move, by closing unprofitable ventures and emphasizing private label brands. Tandy's approach involved small, knowledgeable staffed stores focusing on private brands, aiming to identify key products for optimal sales. And this is kind of really what I remember being younger and going to Radio Shack and my dad talking to the people there about whatever he was looking for, mostly, I think, probably speaker things, if memory serves me. Later on, they would hire people looking for jobs, but this was the precipice early on, trying to find experts or people who were interested in that field at the very beginning, finding people who wanted to sell their goods and were knowledgeable in those products, people who were involved in the hobbyist industry of radios and this technology, right? The 1970s witnessed the introduction of the innovative Battery of the Month Club, marketing initiative that successfully drew foot traffic. In 1970, Tandy's acquisition of Allied Radio Corporation led to a merger of the brands, forming Allied Radio Shack. Notably, the Flavor Radio, sold from 1972 to 2000, became the longest running radio product in history. Radio Shack played a pivotal role in the mid-1970s SoBe radio boom, significantly contributing to its revenue. The company ventured into home computers in 1977, smart move, right? Introducing the TRS-80, one of the earliest mass-produced personal computers. So, they're doing some smart things. They're being intelligent with what they're doing. In the mid-1990s, Radio Shack sought to transition from small components to mainstream consumer markets with a particular focus on wireless phones. The year 2000 marked a significant rebranding effort as the company dropped the Tandy name and became Radio Shack Corporation. As the 21st century unfolded, Radio Shack faced challenges adapting to emerging trends like e-commerce, intensified competition from retail giants like Best Buy, Amazon. You know, the story's the same, which is kind of funny because, like, you think of Amazon, Best Buy, these big box stores and, like, online e-commerce people squashing out, like, mom and pop shops. But then you, like, forget that they also squashed out a lot of other corporate competition. So that's kind of interesting, right? By 2011, smartphone sales became the primary driver for the chain's revenue, which is not a good sign, signifying a departure from its traditional do-it-yourself customer base. Despite endeavors to recapture market share, Radio Shack's financial decline persisted, exacerbated by a growing preference among customers for online platforms to fulfill their electronic needs. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense too, because it's like, you know, why would you spend time to go to a store that doesn't have what you're looking for because they shifted into phones? Or, like, I don't know, the last time I went into a Radio Shack, they had one in my mall in my hometown, and it was always like little kitschy gadgets, like fun little things, but it's like, this is not, I don't know, it was like not what you would expect from a company that had been around for that long. You would think, like, you know, double down on what had got you there. A lot of hobbyists doing a lot of things, you know. Obviously there's more hobbies than ever probably right now, but like when I read that they were like, yeah, we're just gonna transition to cell phones, like that was like the death note, right? That was it for him. And I don't know. Anyway, the next entry I think about from time to time as I'm driving around, seeing a car that is no longer in production, which isn't that unusual. What is unusual is growing up being driven around in a specific car brand, make, if you will, and even several different cars of that same make, and then watching it cease to exist. I am, of course, talking about Pontiac. I'm sure if you are of a typical podcast listening age, you know what I'm talking about. The red V-shaped emblem on a reasonably priced car that every family had at least one of during the late 90s, I feel like. Where did it all begin? How did it all go wrong? Well, 5 years after the Radio Shack Bros opened their shop, General Motors created a division of their automotive line that was to serve as a companion line to a luxury line. If you can call a car from 1926 luxurious. I mean, no, they were pretty swanky back then, but the concept of a luxury car has changed quite dramatically. But I'll explain further here in a minute. So Pontiac, let it be known, was never its own entity. It was always like a subsidiary, a division section, part of the larger General Motors umbrella. And if you are not into cars, let me tell you, this is not that abnormal, right? There's a lot of car companies that own a bunch of other car companies and use it as a, I don't know, it's not really flooding the market, but they're trying to take over like an entire demographic. Like, oh, okay, well, you don't like our expensive one. Well, here's a cheaper, more economically viable option for you. And that big company's still making money, right? Like better us sell you a cheaper car than you buy it from Ford or whatever, right? So in the early years of the 20th century, it seemed that car making was the newest trend. In 1886, Carl Benz patented his gas-powered vehicle, and if you remember from the Hometown History episode, the first steam-powered self-propelled automobile in the United States was made in 1873. So this technology advanced quickly once a bunch of minds all over the world were focused on quicker travel. Even more interesting is that vehicles have been designed to be made using steam power as far back as 1672. I found that out, so that was kind of interesting. Granted, production on these was another issue. You can design things all day, but creating it and making it work is a completely different animal. Still, early working versions of the car were being made in the 19th century, and once there were a few preferred methods out there, the competition to be the major automobile manufacturer was on. One of the biggest hubs of this new economy was the state of Michigan, and most notably the city of Detroit, aka Motor City. The reason for this place being the hotbed for so many manufacturing exports is its proximity to the Great Lakes and water system. The raw materials of the region and easy access made easy access to more made it an ideal spot for that. At the turn of the 20th century, you wanted to have manufacturing near water for a few reasons. The biggest being that it was easy to get supplies and because the water could provide power. For automobiles, Detroit served as many other urban areas that hosted a plethora of businesses and production facilities, but cars are what put it over the top, essentially. By the time the Great Depression occurred, the automobile production was the manufacturing in Detroit. It seemed to be the only thing not really stunted by the economic catastrophe. I mean, of course it was, but it just seemed to continue after it, like, intensely. And of course, you cannot talk about car manufacturing without mentioning Henry Ford, the assembly line pioneer. I think a full episode on him would be fun to do, so let me know if you agree. Drop a comment in the Facebook or on the YouTube, you know. Anyway, Ford had his plant, and then the Dodge brothers, and then General Motors were following shortly behind. There are a whole slew of other small manufacturers, and it's kind of funny to see them all owned by a couple of their peers from back in the day. Now, the whole car industry is very messy, however, what is pertinent to know is this next part, that where there was a company called Oakland Motor Car out of Pontiac, Michigan. Pontiac sits on the north end of Detroit and probably used to be pretty far away, but if you look at a map now, it's the burbs. Oakland is also the county in which Pontiac sits, so it's not that confusing name, like, now that you know that, because at first I was like, well, that's a little far from Michigan, but it makes more sense knowing that. Anyway, Oakland was really not that long on their own as a company before GM bought them in 1909 after being founded in 07, letting them be their separate division of the larger GM brand. Oakland was the economy or entry-level car that was comparable to the Model T that Ford was putting out By the 1920s, Chevrolet entered the game, and they had a car that was cheaper than most of the others GM was putting out, so Oakland released a companion car to compete with that price point. Now, I should stop for a second and explain what a companion car is. A companion car or make is a line of automobiles that supplements the original line in some fashion, mostly to create a more economic version, as I stated before. What is interesting is that of the 4 brands GM used as companion makes, 3 did not last to World War II. The sole survivor of this fate was Pontiac. It was also the first one to be launched, so that's kind of interesting. Pontiac took its name from the town in which it was manufactured, and this was named after an Ottawa war chief who had fought against the British at Fort Detroit. His Ottawa name is Pontiac. That's what I found anyway. It is spelled super funky, nowhere close to what Pontiac looks like. And then Pontiac, this guy, was the reason why colonies in America were limited to the Appalachian Mountains around that time, because the British decided just to leave that area for Native Americans following their defeat in battle against him in 1763. Now, I'm guessing the name Pontiac is just a ever-long Anglicanized version of the name, but that is loosely where it comes from, right? Pontiac was the companion to Oakland beginning in 1926, which was released as a 6-cylinder, shorter wheelbase car that was priced as if it were a 4-cylinder, so a little cheaper. It wasn't long before Pontiac was actually outselling their companion company, and by the time the Great Depression hit, the more expensive of the two was left in the dust. Now, I said the car industry didn't really take a hit during the Great Depression, but that's not really true. Obviously, everybody did. But what I mean is that the auto industry seemed to bounce back stronger than ever afterwards. And part of this is restructuring that they did by getting rid of some of these needless extra pieces and refining the existing ones. In the 1930s, Pontiac strategically shifted its focus towards manufacturing budget-friendly cars equipped with straight-8 engines, a move that involved leveraging components from Chevrolet. This innovative approach allowed Pontiac to offer cost-effective vehicles. The introduction of the distinctive styled silver streak design in this era became the hallmark feature, setting Pontiac apart from its automotive competitors or peers. By the time 1937 rolled around, Pontiac underwent a significant transformation, embracing a new all-steel B body that it shared with other brands. This platform incorporated a Hotchkiss drive mechanism and featured an enhanced engine displacement, showcasing Pontiac's commitment to technological advancements and improved performance. Okay, so this is what they were about in the early days. They were like, all right, we're gonna keep trying to do some interesting things and try to tweak, and we're just gonna keep being innovative and cost-effective. World War II prompted a pause in civilian car production at Pontiac, but post-war period from 1946 to 1948 saw the continuation of pre-war designs with the subtle modifications that they made. Introduction of the hydromatic automatic transmission in 1948 played a crucial role in boosting Pontiac's sales. The year 1949 marked a turning point for Pontiac with the introduction of the new models, most notably the Chieftain line, which replaced the Torpedo. The iconic 1950 Catalina, the Catalina wine mixer, let's go, dude. A pillarless hardtop coupe captured attention and became a symbol of Pontiac's design prowess. In 1955, Pontiac ushered in a notable era change. The brand introduced new body designs, revolutionary overhead valve V8 engine, and bid farewell to the 6-cylinder engines for now. The shift underscored Pontiac's commitment to innovation that has been ongoing, that we continue to see in this story here. The rebranding of Pontiac in 1956 was also a significant move. It got rid of the traditional silver streaks. Subsequently, introducing the Bonneville in 1957 marked a milestone, showcasing their inaugural venture into fuel-injected engines. The 1959 model embraced the arrowhead emblem, the red arrowhead design, which is what I know of Pontiac. Introduced a wide track design, enhancing both aesthetic appeal and handling capabilities of Pontiac vehicles. The early 60s witnessed the launch of compact Tempest, a groundbreaking model that earned the prestigious Motor Trend Car of the Year award in 1961. Notable for its innovative technology, the Tempest featured a flexible steel shaft that delivered power to a rear-mounted transaxle, which just continued to prove Pontiac's engineering prowess, right, in face of their competitors. The 1960s also had some famous notables involved, such as the man John DeLorean, buying cocaine from the FBI fame. He also had a car company that produced the time machine for Back to the Future, but most notably buying cocaine from the FBI. DeLorean was actually part of the design team on the Tempest and was instrumental in increasingly modern innovations that GM was doing across the board, but most particularly at Pontiac. 1964 saw the introduction of the legendary GTO, the GOAT, baby, performance option package that became an emblem of the muscle car culture. The 1967 Firebird, sibling of the Chevrolet Camaro, and the strategic shift to the Grand Prix, the intermediate size segment in the same year, further solidified Pontiac's presence in the performance car realm. Jeez, I made a tongue twister out of it. Yeah, anyway, Grand Prix. That's right, Grand Prix. The car's so awesome, they named a race after it. Of course, that's backwards, but that joke credit goes to my older brother from many years ago. I mean, he's still my older brother, but the joke happened many years ago. Anyway, in 1969, Pontiac initiated a restyling of its full-size cars and then introduced the Grand Prix as a distinct model. The GTO, in turn, received the coveted Judge package. Firebird embraced the Trans Am package. The late 1960s also marked a period of heightened attention to safety standards, leading Pontiac to incorporate features such as energy-absorbing interior parts and dual-circuit hydraulic brake systems, which is pretty cool. Noteworthy in this era were the exploration of concept minicars in the late 60s, although none of them reached full production. Despite this, Pontiac's legacy during this time was, just continued to carve out this spot of, like, they're trying to innovate, they're doing a lot of things. I mean, GTO, Trans Am, let's go, dude. Those cars. I mean, it's tough because I like the old school Dodges, right? But I guess if somebody offered me, a 67 GTO, I guess I would take it. Whatever, I'm gonna complain the whole time. Anyway, in the 70s, multiple factors included rising insurance and fuel costs, as well as stringent federal emissions and safety regulations, brought about significant changes in the landscape of muscle cars. If you've seen cars from the later 70s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It got depressing for everybody. Muscle cars got real depressing. And this time marked the end of the unrestrained, powerful engine characteristics of the 60s. Industry pivoted towards prioritizing safety, luxury, and fuel efficiency. In 1971, General Motors mandated engines capable of using lower octane, unleaded gasoline, resulting in and reduced compression ratios, performance, and fuel economy. Pontiac, attempting to match the luxury of Buicks and Oldsmobiles, faced challenges contributing to its gradual decline in 1971. So it was doing good. It was fighting the good fight against some of these cars, and then it was like, all right, well, never mind. The crazy, good old fun, wild times of the 60s are coming to an end. Sorry, guys. In mid-1971, Pontiac introduced the compact, budget-friendly Ventura 2 based on the Chevrolet Nova, which is the Nova's pretty cool. Simultaneously, the brand underwent a comprehensive restyling of its full-size cars, transitioning the Bonneville to a higher luxury model and named it the Grandville. Ooh. This period witnessed innovations like the clamshell design in station wagons, where the rear power-operated glass lid slid up into the roof as the tailgate dropped down, so that's kind of sweet. The year 1972 marked the introduction of emissions reduction and safety measures, with the GTO becoming a sub-series of the Le Mans series. Notably, the mid-size Pontiac was renamed Le Mans, signifying a shift in focus from performance to marketing and sales under the management of Martin J. Caserio. 1973, Pontiac restylized various models, introducing Grand Am as part of the Le Mans line. Power reductions across all engines accompanied increasing emission regulations. The introduction of the Super Duty 455 engine in the same year demonstrated that Pontiac was not letting go. As emission regulations intensified, two iterations of the 455, the 7.5 liter engine, were discontinued. They tried, man. Fuel efficient 1975 Pontiac Astra, based on the Chevrolet Vega, marked the brand's entry into fuel economy, while the Grandville convertible of the same year was the last full-size convertible built by Pontiac until the 1980s. The year 1976 marked the end of traditional American large cars powered by big block V8 engines, the introduction of the Sunbird, based on the Chevrolet Vega and Monza, in the same year, reflecting changes in landscape. Mid-1977 saw the introduction of the Phoenix, upscaled version of the Ventura, further aligning with the shift towards front-wheel drive platforms. The late 70s and early 80s witnessed continued emphasis on luxury, safety, and fuel economy in Pontiac's offerings. The introduction of front-wheel drive Phoenix in 1980 marked a departure from their all rear-wheel drive configurations before. The Firebird, successfully marketed in film and TV shows, maintained its popularity with Formula and Trans Am packages. The 1982 Firebird, with the wedge-shaped design, which was a big redesign from the 1970 version, benefiting from embedded marketing and shows like Knight Rider. Kit, let's go, dude. That 1984 Fiero mid-engine coupe. Oh man, dude, I see one of these on Facebook Marketplace like every couple months or so, and I am just lucky I don't have more money, because I would be buying so many dumb cars, I swear. Anyway, the Fiero showcased Pontiac's departure from their traditional models. You know, they're moving the engine around, trying to keep it funky fresh, still trying to push the envelope as far as, like, you know, mid-engine cars in the 80s. You know, you have Porsche probably dominating a lot more in that aspect, and also like hitting a global market that way. So you got to try to do something. And then they also, began to change into digital instruments, anti-lock brakes, these kinds of like technological advancements, which was interesting. The late 80s witnessed. So by the end of the 80s, Pontiac models were mostly front-wheel drive, with the exception of the Firebird. Despite declining sales, Pontiac became the third largest domestic car maker in America by 1988, appealing to a younger demographic. The late 1980s and early 1990s marked Pontiac's introduction into innovations like anti-lock brakes that I mentioned, GM's Quad 4 engine, also airbags, composite materials. They started trying to keep their innovation going, and and then the 1990s had the Pontiac's first minivan. I think that for the longest time, I thought this was the only minivan that existed, was the Pontiac minivan. And then they also had a light truck, which did not last very long. And then the mid-1990s had a shift in sales, with a gradual decline from 801,000 units in 1989 to 563,000 in 1997. So that's pretty steep drop off. Despite challenges, Pontiac continued to evolve, revamping these old models like the Bonneville, trying to invigorate things, and then reintroducing the Firebird once again. You have the more curvy body style at this point. And then the 1996 model year marked the end of the 5th generation Grand Prix. They changed it up. That was when that turned into a little more curvy too. That's like the mid 90s, like the early 90s to like 96, 97 is when everything went from like straight and sharp corners into more curved edges again, which is, I don't know, that's how I identify different brands. Like Chevy pickups, it's pretty easy because if it's just straight sides with no angle on it, no body line, that's a 90s pickup for sure. Same thing with Grand Prix. The Corvettes were atrocious in the early 90s. I'll say it, I'm not afraid to fight. Anyway, the late 90s and early 2000s brought changes such as the reintroduction of the Pontiac GTO. Yeah, that's right, they started working on a new GTO, which released in 2004, which was based on the Australian developed Holden Monero. While facing challenges and declining sales, Pontiac continued to try and innovate their way out of this slump. After Oldsmobile got cut in 2004, Pontiac embarked on an extensive product overhaul. Now, Oldsmobile getting cut is actually like probably the best thing that happened for Pontiac. Otherwise, Pontiac probably would have died out in 2004 as well. Because Oldsmobile, the Oldsmobile Intrigue and Alero, two sides of the same car, those two things are the exact same thing, and both are essentially just Pontiac Grand Ams and Grand Prix, right? Like the Bonneville, like those things are all the same car, just slightly different headlights and things. Maybe a little bit, there might be a couple more performance packages in the Pontiac versions, but anyway, Oldsmobile gets cut 2004, and then the the Grand Am is gone too. They cut that, put in the G6, fly like a G6 baby, in 2005, which I'll say it, I think that was a dumb move. It also, that same year was the last year of the Bonneville. 50 years of production for the Bonneville. And they're like, you know what, we're done. We're gonna try to appeal to new people. We got a G6 baby, let's go. Pontiac ventured into a sports car, trying to do like the Solstice, the Pontiac Solstice. I don't know if you remember that. There's a coupe, little roadster thing, convertible. This is, if you're watching the video, this is convertible, the sand sign. Anyway, the Pontiac Solstice from 2006 to 2009, and then they also got rid of the Aztec, which was a good thing to get rid of. Yeah, the Aztec's probably the thing that did Pontiac in, if I'm being honest. That thing was completely ridiculous. Breaking Bad, that's the Walter White family car, is the Pontiac Aztec. It was atrocious, the ugliest car ever. Further transformations unfolded in 2005 as the Sunfire bowed out, which was a coupe, if I remember right, making room for the G5, G6, that line. The Grand Prix line saw the introduction of the high-performance GXP, featuring GM's LS4 V8 engine. By 2008, the Grand Prix concluded its production, paving the way for Australian manufacturer rear-wheel drive G8, which, it was good performance and affordability, but also you got to think you're cutting these old, these things people have been accustomed to, and they're trying to innovate still, but it's not working. During this period, speculation surfaced regarding Pontiac's increased reliance on rear-wheel drive technology, with a discussion ranging from compact sedan based on the Alpha platform to prospective rear-wheel drive G6 slated for the 2013 model year. Despite the buzz, uncertainties loomed, and Pontiac grappled with various challenges. 2008, General Motors contemplated the elimination of Pontiac and other brands to secure a $25 billion loan. The turning point came in April 27, 2009, when GM officially declared the discontinuation of Pontiac. And if you remember, or if you weren't there, 2008, economy was kind of not great. There's a lot of businesses shutting their doors, a lot of stripping of the former business. So this kind of applies to Radio Shack and Kodak as well, because they all around that same time started reducing everything, and that was why. So it's not just like, wow, all these guys just conveniently, because if you don't remember, that's what happened. Anyway, The decision, driven by bankruptcy threats and a revised business plan, aimed to streamline focus on core brands, namely Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac. Production and franchise agreements drew to a close in 2010, signifying the end of Pontiac alongside Hummer, Saturn as part of GM's restructuring. The final chapter unfolded with the assembly of the last Pontiac, a white 2010 G6 sedan at the Orion Township assembly line in January 2010. Now, despite the discontinuation, Pontiac's legacy obviously endures as a registered trademark of GM, serving as licensing purposes. I mean, in video games mainly, like Forza is essentially what it's left as. It's like a digital ghost, which is kind of sad, but there were attempts to secure licensing to buy the brand, as a private owner tried to buy the rights to Pontiac, and he was even approved to buy a Pontiac factory, like where the last one rolled out. He was gonna buy one and hire a bunch of people and just keep making them at limited runs, which would have been cool, but it was rejected by GM, which I don't know. Obviously it's their thing. They can do what they want, but that's kind of messed up, right? Pontiac shaped my childhood in a weird way. Yes, it is just a car brand, but it's a car brand that I saw exclusively, all the time. Also a car brand that my family had a lot, had an odd interest in cars in general growing up, and everybody in my family kind of had some of it. So I was able to differentiate between many from an early age. My mom had a bright red Grand Prix, which I remember putting a sticker on the back bumper for my stepdad's racing sticker collection. I remember leaving a crayon in the back seat one summer and it melted into a blue blob in the gray fabric seats. I remember my mom getting backed into by a Suburban in the McDonald's drive-thru, leaving a specific dent on the very front of the hood, just right above where the Arrowhead emblem would be on the hood, just right there. I remember it clear as day. I also remember falling out of the back of my mom's car and cracking my head open and needing staples in my skull, so that was cool. It was also my brother's, that red one was also my brother's first car, and then 2 cars later he had a different Pontiac, which he really loved. My mom also had one car in between the 2 Pontiacs she owned, so that is super common, and I don't know if it was that common for everybody else, but definitely was not just us, right? Also, random connection was in 8th grade, we had one of those cool, slick teachers, and he liked to give everybody nicknames and had funny jokes and all these things. And, well, he gave me the nickname of Pontiac because they had a car named the Fury, which his grandpa had one, and he associated Fury with me because I had a lot of anger issues as a child, and I was very quick to anger, and I had so we had a free period at the end of our days in middle school, and one free period, you took classes, but they were I took model building for instance. But for this one, it was 9 square. I literally took 9 square as a class in 6th grade, I think. And this teacher taught it, and I would just get real intense about it. Also, keep in mind that my elementary school, my class in elementary school, also made the school consider very hardly to get rid of 4 square and 9 square altogether because we were way too aggro about it. So I don't think it was just me, but I did have an anger. Anyway, besides the point. So he gave me this nickname. He nicknamed me Pontiac because Pontiac had a Fury. Well, it turns out that Fury was actually a Plymouth. It was a Plymouth Fury, completely different car brand altogether. Despite that, it was the name of my first Xbox Live, my main first Xbox one, Pontiac Fury. I know there was numbers attached to it. I don't remember what they were. I want to say it was 63, but it was probably my birth year or something, which obviously is not 63, unless you're somebody I work with, in which case it's 1863, because they're all mean and bully me about how old I am. But anyway, so Pontiac Fury, that was, that's how close to this brand I was, without ever actually owning one myself. Isn't that interesting? Either way, that car brand definitely was one that had to throw people off, right, when it was taken off the market. Anyway, if you have noticed a trend in these companies that are slowly becoming more and more recent, you are an astute student. In keeping with that trend, the next venture moves from transportation to transportation. Technically only a year younger than Pontiac, it did not live as long. This transportation service served as a pinnacle of classy travel, crossing the globe to deliver people from one location to another at the speed only an airplane could produce. If you guess PanAm as our next entry, then you're just the most observant person, and you have earned one crisp high five. PanAm started in 1927 by 2 U.S. Army Air Corps officers Henry Arnold and Carl Spatz, and John Jowett, who I'm assuming is not an Army Air Corps officer, just based off of how that was written. Anyway, in 1920, an aviation company based in Colombia sought landing rights in the Panama Canal Zone, ostensibly for conducting air route surveys to the United States. The year 1927 witnessed the U.S. Postal Office inviting for bids for mail delivery contract from Key West to Havana. This set the stage for an emergence of Pan America Airways, PanAm. PanAm's inception was catalyzed by its awareness of this group that is called SCAT, SCADTAS, but the abbreviation is not English. Like, those letters are not English. So anyway, SCATA's efforts to secure U.S. airmail contracts, sparking a competitive environment with key players like Juan Trippi's Aviation Corporation of America, ACA, and Atlantic, Gulf, and Caribbean Airways. So it all started as mail courier services, like mail delivery via airmail. Despite intense rivalry, PanAm successfully secured the mail delivery contract. However, they were faced with challenges such as lack of aircraft. It's a pretty big challenge if you're going to be an aircraft company. Landing rights in Cuba, so a last-minute partnership was forged. The collaboration facilitated PanAm's inaugural flight to Havana in October 1927. Subsequent formal merger of the three companies in 1928 marked a significant milestone for PanAm, propelling, pun intended, its expansion and establishing a virtual monopoly on foreign routes. The company strategically acquired struggling airlines in Central and South America, solidifying its presence. Dude, they're just going around buying these airlines as they get more and more. And they're like, yeah, just, you know what? Come with us. Amid the stock market fervor in 1929, PanAm navigated forced mergers, extended its network, and entered into strategic partnerships, such as one with Grace Shipping Company, leading to the formation of Pan America Grace Airways, Panagra for short. The company's proactive expansion also involved the acquisition of Mexicana de Aviación? I don't know. Mexicana de Aviation, establishment of routes to South America, contributing to PanAm's allure as a sought-after stock. The Clipper era defined PanAm's pioneering spirit, marked by groundbreaking trans-Pacific and transatlantic flights that significantly reduced travel times. Utilizing flying boats like the Boeing 314, PanAm initiated routes distant destinations such as China, Singapore, and Europe. The iconic Yankee Clippers transatlantic journey in 1939 and its subsequent wartime contributions underscored PanAm's capabilities and global influence. With the onset of World War II, PanAm's Clippers were repurposed. They were turned into dolphins, actually. Little known history about PanAm is in World War II, they turned all the airplanes into dolphins to fight the Nazis. They repurposed the planes for military service, and a subsidiary of PanAm played a crucial role in establishing an air military supply route. Notable achievements during this period include the Pacific Clippers' historic circumnavigation in 1942 and President Roosevelt's groundbreaking flight in the Dixie Clipper in 1943. PanAm's enduring legacy is deeply rooted in its contributions to intercontinental air travel, the iconic status of its Clippers, and the establishment of crucial international routes. These accomplishments have solidified PanAm's place in aviation history in general, but like in World War II, they were doing more than anybody else, I think. In the aftermath of World War II, the landscape of air transport underwent a shift for PanAm as the exclusive official support it once enjoyed began to wane. Despite utilizing its political influence to maintain its position as the United States' primary international airline, PanAm encountered intensifying competition from various fronts, including American Export Airlines, TWA, Braniff, United, Northwest, Orient, and others. This was a pretty big change-up in the Civil Aeronautics Board strategy, emphasizing a promotion of competition among major U.S. carriers. This is a very big switch up from what PanAm was used to before World War II, right? They were like, we'll just buy everybody, it's fine. Post-war era witnessed milestones as the American Overseas Airlines became the first airline to establish regular land plane flights across the Atlantic in 1945 in response to the impending competition posed by TWA and their faster Lockheed Constellations. Pan Am strategically ordered its own Constellation fleet, launching transatlantic flights in January 1946 and surpassing TWA by 3 weeks. As Pan Am expanded its global footprint and undertook groundbreaking initiatives, including the historic round-the-world airline flight in June 1947, airline continually adapted its services and fleet to meet the evolving demands of aviation industry. Advent of jet travel marked this major moment in airline travel. Pan Am became the inaugural customer of the Boeing 707 in 1955 and procured 25 Douglas DC-8s. The 60s ushered in a wide-body era for Pan Am with the introduction of the Boeing 747, a revolutionary development that transformed long-haul travel. This era positioned Pan Am as a symbol of innovation, carrying a staggering 11 million passengers over 20 billion miles in 1970, the year that witnessed the introduction of the wide-body airline travel. That's a crazy number. 20 billion miles in 1970. Obviously, you look at like flight trackers today, you can look them up online, you can find Taylor Swift's plane, whatever, and there's a bunch of flying all the time, but there wasn't that many back then. So 20 billion miles is it seems like a lot. It seems excessive. And this is also like, this is the time. The 60s and like the 70s, Pan Am was the place to be. Like they had it down. Pan Am's pursuit of supersonic travel, including considerations for the Concorde and the Boeing 2707, counter challenges. The latter in particular failed to materialize as Congress withheld additional funding in 1971, so didn't get that. Technological strides extended Pan Am's reservation systems to the introduction of Pan Am AC, a significant IBM-built computer system designed for booking airline and hotel reservations, like kayak.com before it was a thing. This also continued to help increase Pan Am's operational success and just put them above and beyond the competition continually. The iconic Pan Am building in Midtown Manhattan, later known as the MetLife building now, served as the airline's headquarters, embodying its prominent presence in the corporate landscape. Furthermore, Pan Am's fast-forward thinking approach was evident in its terminal Worldport at JFK Airport in New York as well, featuring a distinctive elliptical roof design and unique amenities that underscored the airline's commitment to providing a cutting-edge travel experience. Now, their legacy encompasses not only its pioneering role in transatlantic and global travel, but also, contributions to the technological advancements and infrastructure developments that left everybody like kind of blown away at the time, right? At the pinnacle of its success in the late 60s, early 70s, Pan Am declared itself the world's most experienced airline. This era witnessed achievements as Pan Am, basking in substantial success, ferried an impressive 6.7 million passengers in 1966, and then that other number that I said, what was it, like 11 million in 1971? They had 150 jets. Airlines connected vast networks encompassing 86 countries, expansive route that spanned 81,000 unduplicated miles. Wow. And then like all of this kind of culminated in their profits passing the $1 billion mark, right? Their strategic views were instrumental in linking major hubs like New York and key destinations in Europe, South America, also establishing crucial connections between Miami and the Caribbean. In a bold move towards innovation, Pan Am ventured into uncharted territories by introducing helicopter shuttle service in 1964, like Uber, but for helicopters. Let's go, dude. And this service connected New York's airports to Lower Manhattan through pioneering efforts of New York Airways. The airline's jet fleet, featuring iconic aircraft such as the DC-8s, Boeing 707s, 747s, continued to expand. Their aviation prowess extended to include Boeing 720Bs, 727s, 737s, 747s, Lockheed L1011s, TriStar, McDonnell Douglas DC-10s, Airbus A300s, A310s. Then beyond the realm of aviation, Pan Am diversely invested in its interests, from owning the Intercontinental Hotel chain to holding a stake in the Falcon Jet Corporation. Airline played a role in strategic projects like contributing to missile tracking range in the South Atlantic and operating a nuclear engine testing laboratory in Nevada. Additionally, PanAm garnered acclaim for its active involvement in humanitarian flights during this period. Renowned for its modern fleets, PanAm crews were celebrated for their exceptional skills and expertise. Like if you were a PanAm flight crew, like part of the crew, like you were the pinnacle, like you were the best, like the best of the best. The airline recruited multilingual, college-educated cabin staff from around the world, often with nursing training and additional to the exceptional quality of service that they would give, and like they had all these other things that they would give too. Their onboard experience, influenced by Maxime de Paris, stood out for its personalized flair and remained unparalleled in its excellence. And their operations included internal German services, which facilitated high-frequency short-haul schedule between West Germany and West Berlin from 1950 to 1990. This unique undertaking stemmed from, obviously, World War II agreements between the United States, UK, France, and the Soviet Union. These agreements restricted commercial air services to and from Berlin exclusively to carriers from these nations. Throughout this period, PanAm's Berlin route dominated the city's commercial air traffic. Moreover, PanAm played a pivotal role in facilitating rest and recreation (R&R) flights during Vietnam War, offering American service personnel an opportunity for leaves in various Asian cities. These flights, were a major benefit to the people that were given them. A huge respite, right? In essence, in the late 1960s, 70s, epitomized PanAm's golden era. Like I mentioned, like this was the time, right? They had all of these innovations. They had the best crew, the best planes, everything, right? They had it all of these airplanes. But what happened? Well, the ambition, the expansion coincided with an economic downturn exacerbated by decreased air travel following the 1973 oil crisis. That's a good topic. I should talk about that sometime. Airline found itself grappling with an overcapacity dilemma aggravated by high overhead costs resulting from decentralized infrastructure and an aging fleet of fuel-inefficient aircraft. Moreover, federal route awards to competing airlines added to the strain of PanAm's profitability. In response to these challenges, PanAm faced dissatisfaction among its employees, leading to a public expression of concerns through a New York Times advertisement in 1974. Burdened with significant accumulated losses and escalating debts, the airline initiated a turnaround strategy in the mid-1970s. This strategy involved a strategic network trimming, a reduction in workforce, operational cost-cutting measures. Implementation of these initiatives, coupled with the utilization of tax loss credits, proved instrumental in steering PanAm away from bankruptcy and actually did help it restore profitability by 1977. Despite PanAm's historical emphasis on international routes, endeavors to establish a domestic network within the United States faced repeated denials from Civil Aeronautics Board. The acquisition of National Airlines in 1980, intended to fortify PanAm's domestic presence, proved counterproductive due to fleet and cultural disparities. The misalignment resulted in escalated labor costs and financial strain for the airline. Countering financial challenges throughout the 80s, PanAm resorted to asset disposal as a strategic measure. In 1985, it sold its Pacific division to United Airlines. This was a big restructuring move, right? Simultaneously, the airline implemented operational cutbacks, revamping its fleet, acquiring new Airbus models. However, the company continued to grapple with precarious financial situation, which was exacerbated by geopolitical events such as the Gulf War. This was also around the time when several hijackings took place, one resulting in a bombing of PanAm Flight 103, which blew up, killing 270 people in total in 1988. They faced a financial crisis and filed for bankruptcy on January 8, 1991. Delta Airlines subsequently acquired the remaining profitable assets, including European routes, Frankfurt hub, the shuttle operation, 45 jets, and the PanAm World Port at JFK for $416 million. Delta invested $100 million, becoming a 45% owner of reorganized PanAm, which focused on serving the Caribbean, Central, and South America for its main hub in Miami. The Boston, New York, Washington National PanAm shuttle service was taken over by Delta in September 1991. In October, PanAm relocated its headquarters to Miami for a planned relaunch in November 1991. Around 60 aircraft and projected annual revenues of $1.2 billion. However, the relaunch faced financial setbacks and Delta's confidence waned, leading to PanAm ceasing operations on December 4th. This resulted in the loss of jobs for 7,500 employees, and PanAm became the third major American airline to shut down in 1991. Delta faced lawsuits, but it was ruled not liable for PanAm's demise. Following bankruptcy, PanAm's remaining assets were sold. Its last hub divided between United and American Airlines, and the PanAm brand was resurrected into a new venture, eventually, not to its previous glory, I suppose. The collapse of the original PanAm was attributed to mismanagement, government indifference, and flawed regulatory policies, leading to sale of its profitable parts. PanAm's International Flight Academy in Miami continued to operate independently as a sole surviving division of Pan America World Airways. Now, I have no real ties to this other than seeing the name PanAm in movies and TV shows, most of it from the 70s, right? It seemed to be like the leading name in air travel, and it was always so, like, I don't know, it was represented in the crisp flight attendant uniforms. They're always like Miss America runner-ups or something. And it's crazy just to see how much the company changed from running packages and mail to being the quintessential airline company, and is also very similar to Pontiac, where they modernized and tried to evolve well in the beginning and then just couldn't do the same thing to keep themselves relevant. Obviously, hindsight 2020, but you gotta wonder what the internal conversations were that led to some of these decision makings that pushed them out of business, right? Now, the last one is one that led to this whole episode, so if you stayed long enough to hear it, I love you. Also, don't forget to comment some of your favorite things that are no longer around. We might be able to squeeze out some more in another one of these episodes down the road, but if you're on YouTube, do the YouTube things, like, subscribe, all that jazz. Okay, so with that out of the way, enter SoBe, aka Southern Beach Beverage Company, founded in 1996 by Kevin McGovern, John Bello, and Tom Schwam. They originally produced a black tea and is one of the last remaining flavors you can actually get. Shortly after, their popularity would grow, and with that growth created more flavors. The packaging was also pretty unique. While the 90s are remembered for plastic everything, SoBe served their drinks in glass bottles decorated with fun lizard designs on them. Over their tenure, SoBe had 23 flavors that no longer exist, and maybe even more, but that's all I could find online, with a few options still in circulation, albeit with plastic bottles. Pepsi Cola purchased SoBe in 2000, and soon it was like a mainstream success. And I know this because I lived in a very small Nebraska town, and even at this random gas station that I frequented in the summer, SoBe was there. Like, that doesn't happen. I still remember those days very, very vividly. I can taste the lizard lava flavor. That hot pink drink, just so good. Anyway, this whole episode made me very depressed, but reminiscing on the nostalgia-filled flavor of this drink is really quite nice to remember. If I had known back then that this drink would be gone, I would have plundered the couch cushions for way more quarters to load up on it while I had the chance. Such is life, and thus always to tasty treats. Slowly, SoBe began to disappear from the markets, whether due to a lack of interest in itself or poor management from the Pepsi owners. Either way, by the time the COVID pandemic struck down many businesses, SoBe was one of them. While you can still find the drinks on different random websites, it's not widely available, and the suspicion is that it will soon be gone entirely, which is entirely too sad. I used to walk the block away to the gas station and buy one after spending a long summer day at the swimming pool. Such a fun time, such a great drink, and I don't know, that there's something about him that was just fantastic. Hopefully someone with money feels nostalgic and has that nostalgic burn in their heart for it, and just revives it. Ryan Reynolds, if you're listening, and I know you are, please revive SoBe. Please, that would be great. Thank you. This is your final mission to achieve the perfect celebrity status. Beyond that, this is the end of the nostalgia train of an episode this week. I hope it was somewhat interesting, hopefully not too detail heavy. I tried to summarize things best I could, but there's a lot of information in some of these companies. I think it incorporated some fun history of a variety of things. That was good. If this was something you enjoyed, please share your thoughts in the comments. If you want to hear a story or topic of a different nature, go to the link tree, which is in the description, or just Google linktree/remedialscholar, or you can simply send an email to remedialscholar@gmail.com. Also, check out the merch. We got some cool beanies. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm wearing it right now. What's up, dude? Check this out. I know winter's almost over, and it's very warm. I will say that it is very warm, and you know, the embroidery looks pretty good. It's pretty crisp, so if I do say so myself. Anyway, if nothing else, just share the show wherever possible, rate, review us, you know, do all of those things, help us out. And that's all for this week. Until next time, try to savor everything you enjoy, because you may never know when it will disappear. And on that happy note, we'll see you next time. Have a good week.